Dvoch. I think it's appropriate that we acknowledge before we start Selichos. We don't say Selichos, we are Mevakesh Selicha first of all, just to correct that. I think it is only correct and appropriate that we acknowledge the gift and the chesed that the Rabbeinu Shalom showed us today, even before we start saying Selichos. Today's Haftorah, Sois Osis, is the last of the Shiva Dinachemta. A series of 7 Haftorahs in which, after the Churban, after the Shloisha de Paranusa, HaKadosh Baruch Hu reaches out to us again. It's Eis Rotzoin, the whole of Chodesh Elul. We sometimes forget the whole Avodah, the time in which the Avodah of Elul is framed, is the weeks of Nechama, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is looking to comfort us, to console us, to bring us closer again. And today was the final Haftorah, the climax. Yeshaya Samach Aleph, Samach Beis, and Samach Gimel. What did we read? Mize bo me edoim chamutz begodim mi botzra ze hodo belevushay. The Rabbeinu Shalom has a dialogue keilu keviyochel with an onlooker. At the end of days, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will come and take final revenge from Edom, and he's bloodied his clothes. Madua odem levushecha ubegadecha kederich bagas. Why are your clothes, says the onlooker to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, why are your clothes full red? Says the Rabbeinu Shalom Pura, but darachti levadi. It's a metaphor. I went to a wine press and I pressed out the blood of my enemies. Because ein ish iti, I looked around and I saw there were no other nations with me. Ve'edrachem ba'api, ve'ermesem b'chamosi. And I had to trample them on my own. Ve'yez nitzchom al begodi, v'chol mabushai, ki yoim nokom belibi, u'shnas ge'ulai ba'a. So today was a Yom Nokom at the end of the Shiva Dinachemta. Just before we start Selichos, we need to acknowledge it and we need to give Shevach V'edah to the Rabbeinu Shalom. Ki Yom Nokom belibi, it was a day of Nokom, and in case anybody hasn't been keeping up, the next in command that they appointed is already gone as well. It's a dead-end job, as they say. Yom Nokom belibi, ushnas ge'ulai ba, may that be our tefillah. That indeed this should be the beginning. It's scary. Yom Nokom belibi, a day of revenge. Ushnas ge'ulai ba, may this be the Shana of Geula coming. The Abit ve'ein oize ve'shtoimim ve'ein soimech. I looked around, says the Rabbeinu Shalom, nobody else, and I had no choice. V'ovus amim ba'api v'ashakrim b'chamosi v'oired la'oretz nitzcham. I threw them down, but chazdei Hashem azkir tehilos Hashem. Our response has to be the next pasuk that we mention and we remember the Chazdei Hashem, Tehilos Hashem, Ka'al kol asher g'malonu v'rav tuv lebeis Yisrael asher g'malam kerachamav v'choroiv chasodov. We need to acknowledge that. Vayomer says Hashem, if you acknowledge that, Ach ami heima, you are my nation, bonim lo yishakeru, vayehi lohem leMoshiach. I will be to you as a Moshiach, b'chol tzaroisam loit, b'chol tzarosam loit tzar, I'll be there with you. U'malach ponav Yishiyah b'chem losoi, hu yigot ga'olem v'yinatlem v'yinaseim kol yemei oilam. And that's how the Haftorah today ended. And that needs to be in light of what happened. We need to acknowledge that. Chazge, as it's an opportunity, as always. The Rabbeinu Shalom, even when things are challenging, things are very difficult, but he shows us how much he loves us, right? Even as we come right to the end of the Shiva Dinachemta, that needs to be acknowledged. And what a wonderful way to segue from there into it. Softens our hearts and it makes us open with that realization that we can start being mevakesh selicha, because that's what the process is all about. The Rambam, in 2 places, famous Rambam, everybody knows the Rambam in Hilchos Tshuva does something very, very strange, very unusual. Those who are aficionados and those that learn the Rambam will know that if you want to look for a good vort in the Rambam, in the halachos, you go to the end of Hilchos Meila, the end of Satuma, the end of so many. He throws in often beautiful ideas at the end of a halacha, end of a set of halachas. Zeya Zelton, I think it's, to the best of my knowledge, in the rest, in Yad HaChazaka, in halachas, in Mishnah, when in his Mishnah Torah, he doesn't give us reasons for halachas. And Tkiyas Shofar is almost an exception. And it's even stronger when we see what he writes in Meir Nevuchim, which I'll quote to you in a minute. Afal Pi, of course, says the Rambam, that Tkiyas Shofar, the mitzvah of Tkiyas Shofar on Rosh Hashanah, Gezeira is a Gezeira Sakosov. Never forget, like the Gemara says, Loma Toikin, why do we take care? Hashem Omatiku, Hashem said blow, that's why we blow. He says jump, we say how high. But even though it's a Gzeira Sakosov, Remez Yeshba. In Hilchos Tshuva he says there's a Remez. Uru Yeshenim Mishnaschem, V'hokitzu Mitardei Maschem, V'zichru Bayrachem. Wake up! That is the Remez of Tkiyas Shofar. Wake up. Because we forget reality, Sheichlim, Emes, Bahavle, Azman, and we forget. And therefore, on Rosh Hashanah, besides, of course, it's a mitzvah, but there is a remez, which he found necessary to tell us in the middle of Hilchos Shofar, remez. In Meir Nevuchim, he says more. In Meir Nevuchim, he says as follows. Chelek Gimel, Perek Mem Gimel, V'chein Rosh Hashanah, Hu Yom Teshuvah V'he'ora Libnei Adam Mitardei Mosam. It is a day of Teshuvah and a day to wake us up from our sleep. Ulefichach toikim by b'shofar, and therefore, that's why it's even stronger. It's not just a remez. Ulefichach toikim by b'shofar k'meshe b'yarnu. U'keilu, and then he says something amazing. U'keilu hu hatzoa u'psicha liyom hatzoim. This is our entry, our pathway into the yom of the tzoim is Rosh Hashanah, to soften us up and to get ready for it. Psicha v'hatzoa liyom hatzoim. How do I know? Because you see that Klal Yisrael understand that it is a unit of days, that it's called, we are noyeg, it's called Aseres Yimei Tshuva. Therefore you see that Rosh Hashanah is a yom of Tshuva, a day of waking up, so that and an entry, a pathway into the day of the Tzom. The problem is, it's not a problem, but it's a challenge. And to appreciate the challenge of this, if we think that we're just going to have a moment of seriousness, which hopefully we will have on Rosh Hashanah when we hear the shofar, it is a day of tshuva. But Chazal Baruch Kodsham understood that that's not enough. Why? It's not enough. It's not enough. It's too dangerous. To rely on the fact that hopefully we'll manage to wake up at that moment and have a moment of real teshuvah, of waking up. Possibly for two reasons. First of all, because it takes time. We have a quick awakening and it's easy come, easy go. The Vilna Gaon in Mishlei says on the Pasuk Lev Rishayim Kima'at, says the Vilna Gaon, that Talmidei Chachomim, we are told, have to be koshim ka barazel, hard like barazel. Why? He says they're not easy. We're a stiff-necked people, am kshei oiref. It's hard to make a hole in barazel. But if you manage, it's only through repetition that you manage to make a hole. When you make that hole, it stays. On the other hand, leiv rishoim are like wax. They're easily influenced. I'm inspired. Wow, I'm inspired for 3.5 minutes, and then I go straight back. And therefore, it's not just enough just to have that moment in Rosh Hashanah. You can't fall into Rosh Hashanah and hope to be inspired. We start now. We start now, and we think about our relationship with the Ribbono Shel Olam, and we crystallize it. And we mevakesh slicha. Ulevava yovin v'shav v'rofaloi. Yeshaya Novi, in one of his first nevuos in Perek Vav, he has a nevuah, he sees Kisei HaKavod, whatever that means. Hashem is Yoshev al Kisei, Srofim Oimdim Imaloi, 6 wings and 6 wings, and then the Malach comes and touches his lips with a coal, and he says, because Yeshaya says, I can't go to Klal Yisrael. I'm Ishtmeis Vasayim Anochi B'Seich, Amtmeis Vasayim Anochi Yoshev. We all have dirty lips, so he touches with one of the Srofim comes and puts some coal onto his, whatever that means, and it touches him and he says, oh, now you have clean lips. Now you can daven. Now you can be a spokesperson. Also something to think about, that in these few days, to think about, we're going to use the mouth to try and connect to the Rabbeinu Shloim. It's a double-edged sword. It can go back and cut you. We have to sharpen it. But then his mouth had been cleaned, and Hashem says, I heard the voice of Hashem saying, who's going to go? And I said, says Yeshaya, here I am, shalcheni. And Hashem sent him, and this is one of his first messages. He says, go and tell the people, Shimu Shomaya va'al tovinu. You listen, but you don't hear. You don't understand. Ru'u ra'oi va'al teida'u. You see things, but you don't put them in a context. You have no understanding of what you're seeing. Hashmein leiv ha'om hazeh. Our hearts have become fat. Va'oznav hachbeid. Our ears are heavy. Ve'einov hosha. We see, we hear, but we don't really see. We don't hear, we don't think. And therefore we have to reverse this process. And this is what we're going to go through. On Rosh Hashanah, our hearts are going to understand. We're going to hear the shofar, and we're not just going to hear, we're going to really hear, Levava Yovin, V'shav, and then we have 10 days of tshuva to do tshuva, V'rofalai, and then we get the refuah of Yom Kippurim, as the Gemara says in Megillah. That's the order of the brachas at the beginning of Shemoneh Esrei. In order to do that, we need to be aware that when there is opportunity, there is also strong responsibility. And here I want to share something a bit scary with you. Forgive me. To explain Selichos a little bit better. Because the Rambam, after he discusses Bechira at length, he says in Perek Shishi, he says there are many psukim in the Torah that appear to contradict each other. I'll keep it short. Whether Hashem does decree what we should happen to us or he doesn't. And here he says something very scary. A long halacha, Perek Vav halacha Gimel, he says, Ve'efshe sheyechta adam chet gadol echatoim harbe. It is possible that a person has done aveirus, ad sheyitin adin lifnei dayan ha'emes, that the Rabbeinu Shalom could potentially paskin, that you should have, that the punishment should be to remove from you the opportunity to do tshuva. You won't get the opportunity to do it. It's a privilege, it's an opportunity to do tshuva. Moinin mimenu ha-tshuva. It's removed from you. You're not given the permission. You won't get the opportunity to do tshuva. And he brings many proofs. And then he says, and this is how I want to frame our Selichos. Ube'inyan halacha daled, he says, Ube'inyan zeh sholim hanaviyim v'hatzadikim b'tfiloseim me'es Hashem la'ozrom al derech ha'emes. And therefore all of our greatest, David HaMelech, Hayreini Hashem darkecha ahalech ba'amitecha. What does that mean? Show me your way. Kalaimar al yimnauni chatoi derech ha'emes. Please don't stop me from doing teshuvah. Give me the opportunity to do teshuvah. And David HaMelech, perhaps more than any other, in his Anova, davened to the Rabbeinu Shalom that we should have the zechus to do teshuvah. And therefore we daven Selichos, which I've said in previous years. I'll just mention it very quickly. What is Selichos? Selichos is a tefillas hamincha. We say Ashrei, Achatzi Kaddish, and then we have the body of the tefillas and bakoshos with the Yud Gimel Midas Harachmim, and then Tachanun. Why? Says the Gemara, La'olam yehi adam zoir b'tefillas hamincha. Eliyahu Hanavi was only answered b'zchus of tefillas hamincha. Mincha is usually davened in the day when we are in the middle, in the strength of our doing, and we have the humility, the anova, not at the beginning of the day beforehand, not at the end when we look back, but right I'm in the middle, I have to take time out. and have to acknowledge the Rabbeinu Shloim. This is when you talk to the Rabbeinu Shloim. This is when we have a real deep conversation with him. And this is the opportunity that Chazal said we need to take at least a few days before Rosh Hashanah, so that when we do hear the shofar, we're ready, we're prepared, our hearts are softened, we're ready. We've done the groundwork, and then the remez of waking up will make its impact, and we'll be able to daven to the Rabbeinu Shloim to do a proper tshuva. And Mitz Hashem, like the Novi says, yesterday we saw the beginning, Liyom Nokom V'Shilem, Mitz Hashem Shnas Geula Ba. This should be a Shana of Geula. We have an Avodah this Yomim Noiroim. Remember, when we stood here last year, who could have thought, who could have dreamt where we would be now? Nobody in their wildest dreams could have thought. And it was all decided on Rosh Hashanah. The Rebbeinu Shalom gives us a glimmer of light now. At the end of this year, we have a lot of avodah to do. We should have the siyata d'shmaya to do it well. Mitzvah Hashem.